Hello students, welcome to the new lecture. Today we are going to learn about odontogenic cysts and tumors. Okay, so the reference text is Schaefer's textbook of oral pathology. So come on, let's learn together. Coming on to the classification. So this entire lecture is MCQ oriented. So only those points I'll be stressing about. So the cyst can be classified as mainly what? Mainly they can be classified into a true or a pseudocyst. So what is actually a cyst? A cyst is actually a pathological cavity which may or may not be lined by epithelium, and it contains a fluid or semi-solid or a gaseous material. So just note down that point. It may or may not be lined by an epithelium. So based on this particular point, the cyst can be classified. Now look into the diagram. So it can be classified into true and pseudo. So pseudo means what? False. So a true cyst is the one which contains epithelium surrounding it, whereas pseudocyst or a false cyst is the one which does not have a epithelium surrounding it. Okay, clear? So this is the basic classification. Now again, when we deal about the odontogenic and non-odontogenic type of cyst, they can be either origin from that of the cells which are the odontogenic cells, so they are classified under odontogenic cyst, whereas the cysts which are arising from other regions other than the odontogenic cells are classified as non-odontogenic cyst. Okay, and the other name of non-odontogenic cyst is also called as fissural cyst. So remember that point, it's very important. Fissural cyst is the other term for non-odontogenic cyst altogether. Clear? Now odontogenic itself we can divide into developmental type and inflammatory type. Developmental in the sense it is due to some kind of developmental trauma. Okay, developmental defect which happens during the normal development of the tooth. The cells were supposed to give rise to the tooth structure, but there was a disturbance which led to the formation of this kind of developmental cyst. That is why it is called as odontogenic developmental cyst. Okay, whereas inflammatory type is the one there is because the cause is an inflammation. Okay, so because of an inflammation you have the cyst developing in that particular area. So they are inflammatory odontogenic cyst. Clear? So you have mainly the cyst which are classified into a true or a pseudocyst based upon the epithelial covering. A cyst is a cavity which may or may not be lined by an epithelium. Clear? So it is true when it is lined by an epithelium, and it is pseudo when it is not covered by an epithelium. And again, based upon from which cell it is originating, whether it is an odontogenic cell or a non-odontogenic cell, you can divide them into odontogenic cyst and a non-odontogenic cyst. Clear? So they are broadly classified this way. Now this developmental odontogenic cyst is of two types. One is intraosseous and one is extraosseous. So the one which is within the bone is called as intraosseous. So which are they? One is OKC, second is orthokeratinized odontogenic cyst, thirdly dentigerous cyst, fourthly you can see lateral periodontal cyst or botted odontogenic cyst, and fifth one glandular odontogenic cyst. The extraosseous variety, that is very important, eruption cyst. It is a soft tissue counterpart of the dentigerous cyst. Botted odontogenic cyst, it is otherwise called as polycystic lateral periodontal cyst. And thirdly you have the gingival cyst of newborn and gingival cyst of adult. Now let's learn in detail about intraosseous. So in this entire part 1 lecture, we will be dealing about MCQ oriented points concerned with intraosseous developmental odontogenic cyst. So from the term itself you should note down, the cyst can be either intraosseous, within the bone, or outside the bone, in the soft tissue counterpart. Okay, so the intraosseous, that is within the bone, they are mainly purely developmental in origin, and they are related to the odontogenic cells. Okay, so those cells, those cysts we will be dealing today. So coming to the first one, odontogenic keratocyst or OKC. It's very important MCQ, so just note down. Okay, so now look into the picture, it's very clear. So in the development of the tooth, if you have not read the oral histology lectures, do read the oral histology lectures and then come back to this lecture. Okay, so then it will be more clear to you. So in this particular diagram, what is shown actually? There is a epithelium, there is a dental lamina which giving rise to that of the enamel organ from which the tooth develops. But in this particular case, what is actually happening in that picture? There is a break in the dental lamina. It is supposed to be a break. Okay, and the remnants of dental lamina are called as cell rest of Serres. Okay, from this cell rest of serous as well as the basal layer of the overlying epithelium. You see an epithelium on top of the dental lamina. From that you have an extension which is called the dental lamina. So the basalmost layer of the cells of that epithelium and the remnants of this dental lamina can give rise to this type of cyst, that is odontogenic keratocyst or OKC. So remember that important point MCQ, the origin of OKC is from two important cells. Okay, so either it can be from the cell rest of serous or it can be from the basal layer of the overlying epithelium. Clear? And in 2005, the cyst is classified into a tumor variety. Okay, tumor in the sense because of the taking into consideration the aggressive behavior of the cyst. This OKC is very aggressive in nature. It behaves very rash. Okay, the behavior is very rash. So because of the aggressive behavior and the recurrence rate, because the OKC has got a very thin epithelial lining. Okay, so even though the surgeons try to remove it from that of the cavity in which it is lying, there is a very high chance of one or two pieces of epithelium to remain within that area. So this can give rise to again a cyst. Okay, so there is a high chance for recurrence of OKC. Okay, and there is mutation in the gene, patch gene, PTCH1 gene or patch gene. Because of taking into consideration of all these features, you can classify this OKC as a tumor also, keratocystic odontogenic tumor, KCOT. It is a classification given in 2005 by WHO. Clear? So that new term can also be asked in MCQs. So remember that point and why it is given like that. It is because of the aggressive behavior, recurrence rate and mutation in the PTCH1 gene. And another important MCQ is which are the syndromes in which the OKC is found or associated with. Okay, so the syndrome is mainly nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome or Gorlin syndrome, and rarely it is associated with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So remember these two syndromes, NBCC, that is nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome or Gorlin syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, in which you see multiple OKCs. Clear? So why the OKC is called so, that is odontogenic keratosis, that particular terms comes because the term is because the OKC, the cystic lining, I told you the lining epithelium of OKC is very thin. Though it is very thin, it produces keratin. Okay, so it produces keratin. Because of that, it is called as odontogenic keratocyst, because of the production of keratin. And the keratin produced by OKC is of two types. It is an orthokeratin or a parakeratin. Most of the times, around 83 to 97% of cases, it is parakeratotic type of OKCs. Okay, and remaining very rarely you can see orthokeratotic type of OKC. So majority of times what you see is parakeratotic type of OKC. That is also an important MCQ. Clear? So the epithelium is very thin. Okay, but a very important histological feature of OKC we will be learning in the next slide. Very important feature is that it is distinctive histological feature is that the lining epithelium, I told you the epithelial lining is very thin, but the epithelial lining is around 6 to 10 cells in thickness. Okay, so the thickness of the epithelium is but more than 5 layer. That is around 6 to 10 cells you can see, thickness you can see. So just note down that normal picture is shown in the above picture, and second one histology picture is showing actually the oral histology picture of OKC. Clear? So in that you can say corrugated parakeratin layer. So I told you two types of keratin is produced. So most of the times it is a parakeratin layer which is seen in case of OKCs. So what is that? You can see that corrugations. Okay, ups and downs. Okay, corrugation means ups and downs. And the next arrow mark, note down palisated basal layer or picket fence appearance. Okay, so the red arrow mark is showing in the basal layer. You can see palisated basal layer or picket fence. So what is a picket fence is what I have shown in the left side picture, that the classical tombstone arrangement is called as picket fence. Okay, so that picket fence the nucleus of the basal layer cells are also arranged in the same manner as a picket fence or a tombstone. Okay, so in case of OKC, and the layer number of epithelial layer is around 6 to 10 cells in thickness. So remember all these points. You can see parakeratin layer also. Okay, corrugated appearance. So all these features classically resembles OKC, odontogenic keratocyst. Clear? So this image is also very important. They can even give you a classical histology picture, the same picture, and you'll be asked to note down, or you will be asked to identify the particular lesion or odontogenic cyst, which is what are the features relating to this. Okay, clear? So note down the picture, it's very, very important. So as I said, there are two types of keratin produced by OKC. That is, one is orthokeratotic type, one is parakeratotic type. So most of the times it is the second type. Okay, parakeratotic around 83 to 97% you can see, and orthokeratin variety is very, very less. Okay, in case of orthokeratin you cannot see that nucleus pattern in the superficial layer, but in case of parakeratin you can see that nucleus. Okay, so that is how you will make out under the microscope. Coming on to another important MCQ is the location of this OKC is very important. Okay, so most of the times it is seen in the mandible. When you compare with maxilla, mostly it is seen in the mandible, and in mandible the most important location is ramus, third molar area. Okay, ramus third molar area is the most common site. That is the same location I have shown in the radiographs. So remember the radiograph, relate and study. Okay, then only you can remember in the exam. So ramus third molar area is the most common location in case of OKC, okay, site wise, and the second most common site is first and second molar area, and then the anterior mandible. The most common site is mandible, that too ramus third molar area. And coming on to the maxilla also there is a chance of occurrence. When there is an occurrence, it is mostly seen in the third molar area, okay, followed by cuspid area. Clear? So remember, mandible is the most common site compared to maxilla, and second point you have to remember is ramus third molar area in case of mandible. Clear? And why there is a high chance for recurrence for OKC? I told you the epithelium is very fragile, very thin, and there is a very high chance for this epithelium to remain within the cavity even though the surgeons remove it. Okay, so there is a high chance for small satellite cyst to develop within that epithelium. So that is the picture of a small satellite cyst within the epithelium itself. Clear? Now if a patient clinically comes to you in the clinic, okay, and you happen to first, before diagnosis, you are supposed to take a aspiration. Okay, you're supposed to insert the needle and you're supposed to take the content within the cyst, okay, by aspiration. So if you do an aspiration, what you will find in the syringe, you will get a dirty white viscoid suspension of keratin. As I told you, the OKC, there is production of keratin, so that is keratin which you can see in the syringe. Okay, so the appearance is dirty white in color, viscoid, and it has an appearance of pus but without an offensive smell. So that is how you differentiate between a pus and a keratin. Okay, if it was a pus, you will get a foul smell. Okay, in case of OKC, if you take an aspiration and if the aspirant similar to that of a pus but without a foul smell, it is indicative of keratin mostly. Clear? And along with that you have to go for histology also, that is also mandatory. But before that, to get a provincial diagnosis, you can go for this FNAC. Okay, an aspiration you can do and you can get this picture. Okay, why it is dirty white in color? Because of the presence of keratin. Okay, and if you take that keratin and if you observe under the microscope, if you see the protein content, okay, it has got a very low protein content. After doing electrophoresis, if you see the protein content within the OKC is very, very low. This is because the thickness of the epithelium of OKC is around 6 to 10 layer in thickness, isn't it? And it will not allow high molecular weight protein to enter within the OKC. Because of this reason, the contents within the epithelium, the contents of the OKC does not contain very high molecular weight proteins. Okay, so it contains very low protein content and mostly it will be albumin. Albumin content is more than 4 grams per 100 ml, but the total protein within the OKC is below 4 grams per 100 ml. Remember that point. Okay, so a very small mnemonic I have put to remember this is, just remember OKC, OK4C, low. Okay, so the total protein content is less than 4 grams per 100 ml within an OKC. Remember that way, OK4C, and you give a down arrow mark. Clear? So that is how you remember. Within an OKC, the total protein content will be less than 4 grams per 100 ml, and within that proteins, the most higher amount will be that of albumin, and albumin content will be more than 4 grams per 100 ml. Clear? Now let's learn about the syndrome which is associated with OKC, that is nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome. I told you it is an autosomal dominant syndrome and it is associated with PTCH gene mutation. Okay, so there is a small mnemonic I have put there in blue color for you to remember very easily. You remember as patched. Okay, so PTCH is actually the gene mutation causing the nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome, so remember that way. Okay, so the H is silent over there, so remember patched. It will give you the important features of this particular Gorlin-Gott syndrome, this syndrome. That is, P stands for palmoplantar pits, A stands for arched palate, T stands for transcription of signaling protein, C, cyst of the jaw. Multiple OKCs are seen, that is why cyst of the jaw is given there, and along with it calcification of false cerebri. E stands for early basal cell carcinoma, you can see in nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome. D stands for dysmorphic faces. Okay, so patched, remember that, very very important. So this way you have to relate and correlate and study and remember the important points. Okay, so even they can give you statements like what are the features, which one is false about nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome, and they can give you all these features as options. Okay, so you have to rule out which option is not correct. Clear? So that is how you have to learn and study. Just remember the important points, remember only the important points. Don't overload your head with so many points, and some things are not so important in case of MCQ. Okay, so remember this way, nevoid basal cell carcinoma remember as patched. Now as I told you, the parakeratinized OKC is there. Along with it, orthokeratinized variety of OKC is also present. Now this orthokeratinized OKC can be reclassified into OOC, that is orthokeratinized odontogenic cyst. Okay, so it was previously considered to be orthokeratinized variant of the OKC, and the epithelium in case of OOC is also very thin and uniform, but in this case you cannot see the nuclear palisading. In case of proper OKC, that is palisading type of nucleus was visible in parakeratinized type of OKC, isn't it? But if you take a orthokeratinized variant of OKC or OOC, what you can see, you cannot find this particular nuclear palisading. So that is the major difference between these two variety, and that is why it is being classified into a different, it is given a different name. Coming on to next important MCQ, that is dentigerous cyst, next important odontogenic cyst. Okay, that too developmental in origin. Okay, so first one we learned was OKC, second one was orthokeratinized variant of that OKC, third one we are learning is dentigerous cyst. Dentigerous cyst, other name you have to remember, very important, follicular cyst, and you remember this mnemonic, you remember dentigerous cyst as Mr. Clet. Okay, so that is a mnemonic we are giving you. Just remember dentigerous cyst as Mr. Clet. Why is it so? Because why is it given as Mr.? Because dentigerous cyst is mostly seen in males compared to females. It is mostly seen in males, and there are two syndromes which are associated with dentigerous cyst. That is, one is Markulik-Salemi syndrome, I have given in red ink, and second one is cleidocranial dysplasia. Okay, if you put these two together, you can give it as Mr. Clet. Okay, so remember this mnemonic, very very important. Okay, so dentigerous cyst is associated with two syndromes, one is Markulik-Salemi syndrome and second one is cleidocranial dysplasia. Now what is a dentigerous cyst? It is the cyst which surrounds the crown of an impacted tooth, and it is caused by what? There is a fluid accumulation between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel surface. So that point is very important. Where does the fluid accumulation occurs? It occurs between the reduced enamel epithelium and the enamel surface. So it is mostly associated with unerupted tooth, complex or compound odontomas, or a supernumerary tooth. So the first picture is showing you clearly there is a cyst which is surrounding the impacted tooth. So along with that you can see the tooth, isn't it? Now the last picture is actually showing you the dentigerous cyst radiographic appearance. You can see the cystic area, okay, radiolucent area you can see in the maxilla. Along with that you can see an impacted canine. Okay, so that is how you can make out. Clear? Coming on to radiographic findings of this dentigerous cyst, you have to remember the first radiograph. Okay, the first picture, it is a smooth unilocular radiolucency with well defined margins. Okay, and you can see an associated impacted tooth within the cyst. okay, or along with it. And based upon how this appearance happens in the radiograph, you can classify them into three types, okay. One is central variety. In the central variety, what you can see, the impacted tooth is in the center and the cyst is surrounding it, okay. And second one is the lateral variety, in which the tooth is towards one side and the cyst is towards one side, okay, opposite side. So it is a lateral variety. And third one is the circumferential variety, where you can see the tooth is covered 3/4 by that of the cyst, that is, it is surrounding the tooth, okay. So that is circumferential variety. So this is radiological variation, okay. This is how radiographically you can classify them, okay. So remember that point: central variety, lateral variety, and circumferential variety. So coming on to the histology compared to that of OKC we were having the cell layer thickness was more than 5, okay, that is 6 to 10. But here the epithelial lining is very thin, it is 2 to 4 thickness maximum. So the first picture is the one which showing under very very low power view. So what you can see, the epithelium is very thin. When you compare it with that of OKC, it is very thin, okay, 2 to 4 thickness only maximum. And in the second picture is showing you a tooth. Along with that, you can see the cystic lining, okay. So the cyst, dentigerous cyst, so this is actually a lateral variant of the dentigerous cyst. You can make out very clearly from the second diagram. And the last one, the one with the arrow mark, okay, is showing the Ruston bodies, okay. If you take an ultra high power view of the dentigerous cyst epithelium, and if you view under the microscope, what you can see is Ruston bodies, okay. So these are actually peculiar linear curved hyaline bodies, which you can see very specific to that of dentigerous cyst. So they can ask you in MCQ, Ruston bodies are associated with which lesion, okay, and they can give you options as OKC or dentigerous cyst or any radicular cyst, okay. So it is associated mainly with dentigerous cyst, okay. Sometimes they are seen in radicular cyst also. So mainly they are seen in dentigerous cyst. So make that point, Ruston bodies are specific to dentigerous cyst. Coming on to the last part that is important is treatment is you do is mainly surgical removal or enucleation or decompression in case of a dentigerous cyst. And the radiographic picture in the third picture is actually showing a dentigerous cyst which is transforming to that of ameloblastoma. So you know ameloblastoma is an odontogenic tumor. It is not a cyst, okay. So what are the complications of this dentigerous cyst? The dentigerous cyst can transform into 3 main lesions. One is ameloblastoma. It is an odontogenic tumor. That is what is shown in the picture radiograph. Okay, a male patient with a ameloblastoma which is derived from dentigerous cyst. The patient was initially having dentigerous cyst with an impacted molar, but it later got transformed into what? A ameloblastoma, an odontogenic tumor. So that is why surgeons tell you often, so don't keep the impacted tooth within the oral cavity, just remove it. Okay, so that is why the impaction is a routinely done procedure nowadays. Now, the second complication is dentigerous cyst can transform into a squamous cell carcinoma also. The epithelium can get mutated and it can transform into a squamous cell carcinoma. And the last and important MCQ important one is it can get transformed into a salivary gland tumor also. A salivary gland tumor, that is mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Okay, if the epithelium of dentigerous cyst is having some kind of mucous cells or some, and it is also having an epithelium, isn't it? The epithelial cells. So if both the cells, if they are present, they can give rise to what? Mucoepidermoid carcinoma. So that is a very important MCQ. The dentigerous cyst can transform into which type of salivary gland tumor is a routinely asked MCQ. Remember, it is mucoepidermoid carcinoma. Clear? Mucoepidermoid carcinoma. And it can also transform into ameloblastoma and squamous cell carcinoma. Remember these 2 points also. Next cyst which we are going to learn is lateral periodontal cyst. So we dealt about which all lesions, developmental odontogenic cyst in this part. First one we dealt with OKC. Secondly we dealt with orthokeratinized variant of OKC. Thirdly, that is OOC. Thirdly, we dealt with dentigerous cyst. And fourthly, we are going to learn about lateral periodontal cyst. So from the term itself, it's very clear. It is laterally placed. Okay, so it is laterally placed to the tooth. That is location, the ideal location. Typically occurs along the lateral surface of the vital tooth, usually less than 1 centimeter in size. Okay, so remember that point. First point, very very important, it occurs along the lateral surface of a vital tooth. So that picture itself, it's very clear. You can see a vital tooth, okay, and to the lateral side of the vital tooth, what you can see, a lesion which is less than 1 centimeter in size. Okay, and why does it happen? It is arising, it mostly it rises from the dental lamina rest. Okay, that is cell rest of serous, and it is considered to be intra-bony counterpart of gingival cyst of adult. So extra bony part is gingival cyst of adult, which you can see in the soft tissue. Intra-bony counterpart is the lateral periodontal cyst. Remember that point, very very important. So the one which is seen in the radiographs is lateral periodontal cyst. In the soft tissue is gingival cyst of the adult. So they are actually like brother and sister. Clear? And histologically, if you take what you can see like a bunch of grapes. You can see polycystic appearance. Okay, multiple cyst you can see within the same lesion. Okay, that is polycystic appearance you can see, and that is why it is termed as botryoid odontogenic cyst. The lateral periodontal cyst, if it has a polycystic appearance, okay, if it has got mini cyst which is being clubbed together like the bunch of a grapes, then it is called as botryoid odontogenic cyst. Okay, clear? And microscopically, botryoid odontogenic cyst actually consists of what, as I told you, grape-like clusters of small individual cyst. Clear? So that is what is called as lateral periodontal cyst in a polycystic variety. Okay, the term is botryoid odontogenic cyst. Clear? Now lateral periodontal cyst, remember the important point, as I told you, it occurs along the lateral surface of the vital tooth, usually less than 1 centimeter in size. So they usually asked MCQ is, which is the development odontogenic cyst which is associated with a vital tooth? Just blindly you can give the answer. Which is it? Lateral periodontal cyst. Clear? Coming on to the last cyst of the segment, that is glandular odontogenic cyst or sialo-odontogenic cyst, or otherwise it is called as mucoepidermoid odontogenic cyst. Most of the times in MCQs you can see this as the term. Okay, most of the times they give in options this term. Okay, instead of glandular odontogenic cyst, what you can see, mucoepidermoid odontogenic cyst also they can give. Okay, so the main important MCQ you have to learn here is that why does that term come? Okay, it is because of the presence of both secretory element and epithelium within it. Okay, because both the salivary gland epithelium, salivary gland element as well as the epithelium present within the epithelium of this particular odontogenic cyst. That is why it is termed as mucoepidermoid odontogenic cyst. Clear? And the location is what is routinely asked in MCQ. That is the mandible. Okay, usually it is seen anterior region. So remember that point. Glandular odontogenic cyst is the cyst which is among the odontogenic cyst, the routinely seen odontogenic cyst in the anterior region of the mandible is what? Glandular odontogenic cyst, or a mucoepidermoid odontogenic cyst is mostly seen in the mandible. Around 87% of the lesions occur in anterior region of the mandible. Clear? So you have to remember this point, very very important. Clear? So this is the last slide of this particular part. So in part 2 we will be dealing with the next section of the odontogenic cyst. Clear? Thank you.